Good evening, America. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from our nation's capital and the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. You know this. I love Wired to Fish Coffee. I start my day with it every day, 7 days a week. You can too, and you can get a great discount on it. Go to Wired2FishCoffee.com and use the promo code JustNews at checkout. That's how you get the discount. They support us. You should support them. And by the way, you'll get a great cup of coffee in the process. All right. A lot happened after we went off the air last night around former CI Director John Brennan and the Russiagate hoax. It turns out we may finally be seeing some accountability, or at least the attempt at accountability. Yesterday, you remember, we told you more about former CI Director Brennan's potentially misleading Congress over statements he made about the Russian collusion investigation, specifically dealing with the Steele dossier, the now widely discredited report put together by British ex-spy Christopher Steele at the behest of the Clinton campaign. He made it seem like there wasn't pushing very hard to include, that he wasn't pushing very hard to include that in the that dossier in the CIA's analysis of Russian meddling in the 2016 election. However, documents that Just the News obtained showed quite the otherwise. CI Director John Ratcliffe proving that John Brennan pushed for it. In fact, he overruled his own staff. We now have learned that John Brennan, along with former FBI Director James Comey, are subjects of a new FBI and Justice Department investigation. The investigation into Brennan is tied around what he said and didn't say to Congress about the Steele dossier. And we also have news that current CIA Director John Ratcliffe sent a criminal referral on John Brennan specifically to the FBI. Now, the details around the investigation into Comey are still a little unclear, but two sources told Fox News yesterday evening that the FBI seems to be looking into whether or not there was a conspiracy between Brennan and Comey to push the Russian collusion narrative. Now, we'll be covering these big developments for you over at justthenews.com, so make sure you stay with us there all through the night. There's going to be some other developments. We're going to have a big story in Russia collusion tomorrow involving the FISA court, so let's keep an eye on that. All right. In the meantime, let's bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, as we always do. Amanda, you got a lot of other headlines today. The courts were busy, and we got a guy taking the fifth on Capitol Hill, I hear, right?
Oh, yeah, and we're going to get into all of that, but I've got a few more items on those FBI investigations that I want to get into, those investigations into John Brennan and James Comey, because President Trump was asked about it earlier today, and here is how he reacted to the news.
James Comey and John Brennan now under criminal investigation related to the Trump-Russia probe. Do you want to see these two guys behind bars?
Well, I know nothing about it other than what I read today, but I will tell you, I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell, and maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people, so whatever happens, happens.
And now...
And you know what? We also heard from John Brennan himself over at MSNBC, and I think you might get a kick about how he portrayed all of this. Watch.
I really am very worried that what we're seeing now in this chapter of American history is a sad deterioration of, I think, the respect for the rule of law and for our system of government. And if a president of the United States is willing to weaponize intelligence and justice and, law enforcement investigators, and the people who head up these departments and agencies are willing to bow to it, we really are in deep, deep trouble.
Oh, really, John Brennan? You're seeing a deterioration into the respect for law enforcement now? Okay, well, I think it's pretty clear after everything that President Trump went through in his first term, and then when they tried to put him in jail to prevent him from becoming president again over an interpretation of the law that had never been used before, that we have seen weaponized intelligence and law in this country plenty of times before. So we're going to have to wait and see what comes from those investigations. And as John said, you're going to want to stay glued to this show as we cover all of that here at Just the News and at justthenews.com. All right, how about another potential cover-up to get to before we kick off things with our very first guest of the night? Biden White House Dr. Kevin O'Connor ended up invoking his Fifth Amendment rights today, as he did not want to comply with that subpoena that would have seen him giving closed-door testimony earlier today on President Biden's mental acuity during his time in the White House. He was one of several people the House is calling to testify about whether or not there was an effort to conceal President Biden's mental decline from the public. So, John, you and I covered this a whole lot in the last few years of Joe Biden's presidency, and Tell you what, there certainly seems like there was a concerted and coordinated effort.
I'm working here. I just got a copy of some of the video footage of him taking the fifth today. We're going to try to get it up on air before we end the show today. I'm just getting it to our producers. But yeah, listen, if you're a doctor and you need to take the Fifth Amendment, there is something up. That's all I got to say. And I don't want my doctor ever having to take the Fifth Amendment. That's all I'll say. All right, we're lucky to have one of the great inquisitors in Congress kicking off our show today. He was a big part of unraveling the Russia collusion case. He's done so much to help us understand the border, so many other great scandals. He's now running for governor in Arizona, very popular candidate there. He is Congressman Andy Biggs, a great friend of the show. Congressman, good to have you back on the show.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you, sir. I just want to start with the news of the day. You got the doctor who treated Joe Biden for the 4 years at the behest of the American people saying he can't answer questions, including whether there was a cover-up on the mental decline of Joe Biden because it might incriminate him. Your thoughts on him invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination?
Well, I mean, let's just be candid about this. If this were a normal criminal trial, we would say you can't take that into account. Right. But here we're talking about testifying before Congress under oath, and you're taking the Fifth Amendment, which means that you think that you might get referred to someplace for potential additional investigation and prosecution. So if that's the way if that's the route you're going to go, then I think Congress is going to have to probably say, guess what? We think that there's some fire where that smoke is, and maybe we should just grant him immunity, a limited immunity, and that would obviate his Fifth Amendment right, and thus we could find out what really happened, because that's the goal here is to find out what really happened, who hid what, and what these people knew, when they knew it, and how they covered it up. But it's obvious now that what he did was participating in the cover-up.
Well, and quite frankly, that there are really only two options for him. Either he didn't know that Joe Biden's health was declining, which makes him incompetent as a doctor, or he did know and he covered it up, and that frankly makes him a traitor to the American people, because when the commander-in-chief is not healthy and not suited to leave, then that puts you in a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely right, Amanda. And I would tell you, I think, we don't know because he didn't answer the questions, but we do see all kinds of indications and evidence that he knew something. I mean, we even need to go back to what happened with the prostate cancer and those diagnoses as well. And former White House Dr. Ronnie Jackson, former member of Congress, he also said this guy had problems ethically. So, I mean, that's the question: competence or unethical? Which is the real problem here? And we've got to get to the bottom of that. But he is taking the Fifth, which makes me lean to believe that it's potentially unethical conduct. And these are allegations; these aren't proven yet. But the reality is that's what they seem to be.
Yeah, we'll have to follow the facts, but it is troubling. And it's funny how many times the choice between incompetence and unethical came up during the Biden years. It was a recurring theme on everything from Afghanistan to the family business to this. It's a presidency that probably goes down in infamy when we know everything that we're supposed to know about it. I want to turn to another thing that you played such an important role in, sir, on the House Judiciary Committee and all the other great work you've done. We knew the Russian collusion allegation was a hoax for a long time, but we're getting some strong indications now that what John Brennan told Congress as recently as 2023 may not have been true. He said, I didn't pressure anyone to change anything in the report. The emails show otherwise. And I didn't try to get the stuff into the Steele dossier into the assessment because the FBI really wanted it. Turns out his email saying, I want it in the ISA assessment. Tell us a little bit about what you think about John Brennan. Does he deserve to face prosecution? What do you think should happen?
Yeah, I mean, let's add this to this. Never underestimate the Biden administration's incompetence, but it's also possible to be incompetent and unethical at the same time. And maybe that's just what you're seeing, not with just Dr. O'Connor here, but also with John Brennan. I mean, when he came into Congress and he is telling us that basically that he was whitewashing everything and how innocent he was. and how, what a small part he played in this. And it turns out he may have been the driving force to include a dossier that was recommended by his staff. Don't use this. None of this stuff is verified or verifiable. You can't even verify it. And yet it looks like he was pushing for it. And I'm just going to tell you, if he was pushing for this to impact the election, which it looks like he was, and impact President Trump, guess what? That is at least, if that's not criminal conduct, then it certainly looks like it was an attempted coup. And that we really have to see what went on here, because if these allegations are true, this is very serious stuff here, and it will be the most serious scandal in American history. But then the entire 4 years of the Biden administration was the most serious scandal.
Yeah, no doubt.
What could stick, though? Because, I obviously want investigators to stick to the facts. This is not a Stalinist regime where you find the man and then you find the crimes. I want the facts to be followed. But if he did do something wrong, if there's not a statute that allows for prosecution outside of a certain timetable, my concern is that this will turn him into even more of a martyr, and it will increase his value and his speaking fees, and it will just backfire.
Amanda, there's always room for a cynic, and I love your cynicism. And I will just tell you that you very well may be correct, but we can still. I don't believe that the statute of limitations will toll on lying to Congress, because I believe what triggers is when it's discovered. Now, it looks like it might have been discovered recently, and if that's the case, then I'm glad it's going to DOJ, or excuse me, the FBI, and ultimately it should go to Pam Bondi and the AG's office for potential charges. The bottom line is we follow the facts, we go where they go, and then we're going to seek justice. And I found it ironic with the clip that you just played when John Brennan's talking about the rule of law, that here's a guy that we really we want to see if he followed the rule of law. And if he didn't, then guess what the rule of law says? Justice comes.
Yeah, justice to be served. So I want to turn to another topic that you've been such an eloquent and important voice on, and that is the border. Right now, President Trump secured the border extraordinarily quick and fast and effectively, but the effort to get those who are legally here in the country out is being hindered by people who attack ICE officers, who launch fireworks at them. There's been shootings, ambushes, an extraordinary amount of violence that looks to be coordinated and in line with the rhetoric of some of the political leaders of the Democratic Party, and certainly the far left of the Democratic Party. What is it that they're trying to achieve with these attacks on law enforcement?
I think the major overall goal is ultimately to destroy the fabric of American life. I really do. I believe that. But when you look at this is not dissimilar from cartel activity that we see across the border, and how they pursue each other and how they pursue law enforcement down on the other side of the border. But what's happening here is it does look coordinated. It does look like there's some money behind it, and we need to get to the bottom of that for sure. And I really believe that if we don't do something, and Congress has got to step in like right now, and hold these people accountable from our side. We don't have police power, but we certainly have the legislative authority to add to sentencing. We also need to make sure that there's protection for our agencies. And if the local law enforcement and the local leaders, and I'm speaking to you, Karen Bass in LA, if you're going to hinder and basically de facto promote this kind of lawlessness, then by golly, the federal government shouldn't be sending you any money. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way that is. And I'm sorry to say it, but we've got to protect these men and women who are out there sacrificing themselves, and they're following the law. And by the way, again, that's what John Brennan just said that we're supposed to do in America, is have the rule of law.
Yeah.
Can I squeeze in one more here?
Sure.
All right. On Arizona, you guys are trailing real close to the bottom of the list when it comes to job growth. I know you have ideas as a gubernatorial candidate on how to reverse that.
Yeah, first of all, you're going to have to make sure that all of your infrastructure is good, water, power, and this governor has not been so hot on that. Then you also have to get that tax that tax load needs to be lower. We have states that we're competing with that have just eliminated their income tax. And you also have to deregulate, and we've got permitting standards here in the state which are killing the growth in this state. And I will just tell you, we're going to have job growth ultimately, but it requires us to be proactive in all those areas: taxes, regulation, infrastructure, and education. Those are the areas that we have to protect and do better at.
Common sense, which you've stood for so long in Congress. It's always a great honor to have you on the show, sir. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
We love having the conversation every time you're on. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson is going to join us. He has an extraordinary story. The federal government is keeping state prisons from protecting themselves against drug running going on inside their own prisons. You're not going to believe what we're going to show you in the next segment. But first, a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Tell me the truth. How many different beauty potions do you have sitting on your bathroom counter right now? If it's more than just Vibrant Super C Serum, listen up. The ingredients in this one bottle can replace your day creams, your eye creams, your night creams, your neck creams, your wrinkle creams, and your dark spot reducers. It's made in the USA with the highest quality ingredients, including vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, vitamin B5, and vitamin E. Super C Serum delivers noticeable results. Simplify your skincare routine, get a healthier complexion, and minimize wrinkles and age spots with Vibrance. And if you don't find it better than your current skincare routine, you'll get a full refund. So go to Vibrance.com/justnews to save up to 37% off and free shipping. That is Vibrance, Vibrance, Vibrance.com/justnews. Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. We've got a very interesting story from the state level for you. In South Carolina, their Attorney General Alan Wilson, he's been on the show many times, he announced that a grand jury report found that criminals, some of whom have been locked away for life without parole, are still running their criminal empires from jail behind bars using contraband cell phones. So what's going on and what can be done to stop it? We talked to Attorney General Wilson about that just before the show tonight. Take a look.
It's great to be back on your program. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So this sounds like something from a mob movie. How were you turned on to this, and what's transpired since then?
So what's going on here is we've had a number of state grand jury drug trafficking cases that involve people who went to prison for trafficking drugs, and while in prison continued to traffic drugs. Some of them even became millionaires because we are prohibited under federal law from doing cell phone jamming technology in state prisons. So lots of inmates are sneaking cell phones into the prison systems. They're using those cell phones to facilitate drug trafficking activity, to commit money laundering, and in some cases even to facilitate the sexual molestation of children. Yes, that's a thing too. And they're able to do this from behind prison bars. Some of these people are becoming millionaires while being incarcerated, and we are now prosecuting them for those new crimes and getting them locked away for the rest of their lives. But the problem is, the federal government does not allow state prisons to jam cell phones, and this is something that attorneys general from around the country, both Republican and Democrat, have been yelling about for years, giving us the technology to stop this.
It is such an amazing thing, and the level of detail that you provided in the grand jury report and the announcement today, you really get a sense of how widespread a problem this is. It seems like members of Congress could solve this pretty quickly. Congress could just change, by law, change the regulation and give the ability to prisons to protect themselves, right?
John, you're absolutely right. I mean, the grand jury report, as well as, you know, what I have publicly said is if they would just add the language "and state prisons," meaning allowing companies that develop this technology that would jam cell phones to implement it, to sell it to state prisons, we could prevent people from being killed from behind prison bars, from drug trafficking, from facilitating human trafficking, child sexual exploitation. We would cure so many problems if we did this, if only Congress and the FCC would change the regulations and allow state prisons to have this technology. By the way, there's a federal prison 10 minutes away from one of our local state prisons who has this technology, but the state prison allowed to use it. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. So speaking of disparate treatment, especially on the topic of law and order, this is the epitome of law and order taking place in the state of South Carolina. But you compare that to a state like, say, California, where their Attorney General Bonta would probably not even be concerned about this. And the governor of that state, Gavin Newsom, hanging out in your state. What was the reception like?
I haven't really followed him that closely. He is here campaigning for the next presidential election cycle because he thinks South Carolina is somehow going to propel him. But to me, Governor Newsom is Exhibit A on how not to effectively and efficiently govern his state. And I think he's not going to be greeted the way he thinks he is here in South Carolina.
Yeah. There's too much common sense in California to fall for that, or in South Carolina, to fall for that California line of thinking. It's amazing. There's an amazing moment that occurred this morning in Washington, D.C. The former doctor for President Joe Biden, Kevin O'Connor, refusing to testify in the questions of whether there was a cover-up of the mental decline of Joe Biden, taking the Fifth Amendment so that he doesn't have to talk about doctor-patient privileges. But I don't think the Fifth Amendment extends to doctor-patient privileges, does it?
I remember, I am old enough to remember 4 or 5 years ago where people like you and me and others were being accused of being conspiracy theorists and crazy by the mainstream media and the left. We were all crazy for even raising the idea of Joe Biden's mental acuity. And then, of course, last summer, that own party threw him under the bus because they could no longer deny it. And now the person who is charged with basically examining the president to make sure that he is mentally fit to be the commander-in-chief, to have the nuclear launch codes, to be the president of the United States is mentally fit, is now, when asked the question, were you asked to lie to cover the president's mental fitness, he says, I plead the Fifth. That is absolutely asinine. I'm telling you, everyone who defended the president for 4 years is looking really stupid right now, and they definitely are covering up something.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, pleading the Fifth could not scream harder. Yes, there was a cover-up. Mr. Attorney General, I want to ask you about the decision from the Supreme Court that is going to pave the way for President Trump to drastically shrink the size of government. This is something that he campaigned on, very, very important to his legacy. How far-reaching are these implications, though, in future presidencies?
Look, I'm elated about the Supreme Court's decision to give the president the power to run the executive branch of government the way the president should be able to run an executive branch of government. This Supreme Court has given us a ton of landmark decisions in the last 4 or 5 weeks. June alone was an incredible session for the court, where the Medina case, Medina v. Planned Parenthood, Montmut v. Taylor involving parental rights. You obviously had Trump v. Casa on the president's executive order limiting district court judges from giving universal injunctions nationwide. It's been one terrific opinion after another. And the lone dissenting justice I recall in this one you're talking about was Justice Jackson, who for some reason can't define what a woman is. But I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for ruling the way that they did in this case, because that was the right decision to come to.
Yeah, and I know we live in a law and order society, but you've seen some local federal district judges already defy some of the sentiments and the instruction of the Supreme Court. How troubling is that to you? And what do you think the long-term panacea is to get these district judges back in line with the law and the Constitution?
Well, first off, I think President Trump's first term is very telling that we have the 3 justices who've returned the Supreme Court to its constitutional rules of textualism and originalism, and I'm grateful to see them doing that. Elections have consequences. We got to get these judges out, appoint new judges, and we're going to continue to bring these issues to the Supreme Court. We're going to box off these radical leftist judges who are trying to implement their own woke and political agenda.
I want to wrap with another law and order question. As we see what's unfolding in states like California, it kind of seems like ground zero for all of the bad things that happen across this country. But these ambushes against ICE officers across this country, if an incident like that takes place and a federal law enforcement officer is injured, whether it's DHS, ICE, CBP, whatever, if they are injured or, God forbid, a fatal injury takes place, can the federal government or can DHS, Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, can they sue that state if it's a sanctuary state that has allowed this behavior to propagate?
Yeah, I haven't looked at that federal statute to be able to answer that very specifically. What I can tell you is this. I mean, people who would try to harm an ICE agent or a federal agent for enforcing federal law and doing their job, They are evil. They are despicable human beings, and we should not put them in prison. We should put them under the prison. And in South Carolina, we would not tolerate that here. And I would support the president and Secretary Noem and anyone in the Trump administration availing themselves of all political and legal courses of action to hold those people accountable. And you'll find South Carolina following suit and supporting them in that endeavor.
Yeah, no doubt.
I know for a fact we would never see a story like that coming out of South Carolina. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson, thank you so much for being here, sir. We appreciate your time.
Good to have you on.
Thank you. God bless you.
Same to you. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side of these commercials.
Hey, folks, if you're a homeowner like me, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity is their target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. And that's when the problems begin, because they start taking out loans using your equity and even sell your property. And you're not even going to find out it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice months later. That's a nightmare, right? So when's the last time you checked on your home title? Well, if you're like me, the answer is never, right? You need to do something about that right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code JTN at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes that might happen, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's a good deal. Find out why I trust Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com and use the promo code JTN. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code JTN.
For folks like me who don't agree and ain't ever gonna change, and it gets me thinking, leave this long-haired country boy alone, and I start singing along to that line in the song, Sweet Home Alabama. I hope Neil Young will remember, a Southern man don't need him around anyhow.
All right, guys, that's some serious music. What you just saw, a short snippet of Ira Dean and Ted Nugent's newest single, What Would Charlie Daniels Do? One of my favorite country artists of all time. Now, that track was released on July 6th to serve as a tribute to the legendary Charlie Daniels. And joining us now to discuss their collaboration and this big hit, Ira Dean and Ted Nugent. Welcome, gentlemen.
We feel welcome. God bless
thanks
you guys.
for having me.
Hiya, Ira, and I love you, Ira.
Hey, I love you too, buddy.
I think America loves both of you guys. This thing has blown up since you released it. How did you guys come to collaborate on this? It's the perfect collaboration.
You know, it is number one. Ira is a great
me?
songwriter. He has a great vision. He has a great love affair with great Americans like Charlie. And so we got together, and he needed a fire-breathing Ford Bronco and a fire-breathing Gibson Birdland. So who the hell's he going to call?
Makes all the sense in the world.
All right, so Ira, you team up with Ted Nugent. Is there a predominant force when it comes to the writing of the words, of the lyrics, and the melody? Did you guys split those roles, or did you do a little bit of both?
I actually wrote this song with a guy named Jeffrey Steele. Me and Jeffrey wrote Am I the Only One for Aaron Lewis with Aaron. And, man, Charlie was a great dear friend of mine. He was a patriot. He was the poet of America. He loved the red, white, and blue, the first and second. He loved the whole Constitution, the words in red. And he was like, to me, he was like Jesus and John Wayne wrapped up into one. So it was 5 years ago coming up of his passing. So I just wanted to pay homage to the man. And when you write a big old Southern rocker, me and Ted did a charity event for Hurricane Ian not too long ago, a while back. And I called Ted. I sent him the song. I said, what do you think? And he delivered. What can I say?
There's no doubt both of you guys delivered. It's a fantastic song. I think you captured the essence of Charlie Daniels. I mean, I think everybody remembers the iconic song, Devil Went Down to Georgia, but Long-Haired Country Boy kind of captured Charlie Daniels' comfort in who he was. He didn't try to be anybody else but what he wanted to be, a patriot-loving country boy. When you look back, a new generation of Americans is still enjoying his music. How does that fit? How does this song fit into that?
Well, I just wanted to I'm a big fan of God, family, country, and so was Charlie. And I think being in the music business, you have to have pretty thick pretty thick-skinned to be a conservative and be a Christian. But my dad, raised me to have both of those, so I'm good with it. But I just wanted to pay homage to the guy. The guy was he was a hero. I mean, he was Ted Nugent with a fiddle to me.
I love it.
That's a great description.
Ted, you for a long time have had one foot in the music world and one foot in politics. As you look at the political landscape right now with President Trump in office, a lot of wins coming down the pike and really since January, does it feel like we are entering into a new era of patriotism, the kind that Charlie Daniels would be proud of?
Well, it's so apparent that what Charlie Daniels represented, he was like coming down the escalator before Donald Trump, because he was on the front lines of what was becoming this really ugly political correct culture war that turned spiritual war. And so Charlie never backed down. And how appropriate it is that the number one video is Ira Dean and Ted Nugent paying tribute to the great Charlie Daniels in these contentious times. But to nail the answer, it's always been fire-breathing patriotism. Everywhere I go, I've traveled the whole world, the whole country, and people come up to me. I don't care if I'm in Spain or Ireland or Mill Valley, California. People all over this country come up and celebrate that I've always stood strong for God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, Ten Commandments, Golden Rule, law and order, work ethic, good over evil, self-defense, conservation, constitutional absolutism. And that just described Charlie Daniels. So I know that Ira is an inspired deliverer of his belief system, and he celebrated the Charlie Daniels stand. Charlie Daniels always stood up, especially as political correctness were really getting really toxic and stupid. He always stood like a wall against that. So how appropriate is it that we have a Donald Trump in the White House and the #1 iTunes video right now celebrating Charlie Daniels, because they really are a mirror image politically, spiritually, and patriotically that represent everything Ira and I believe in, everybody at Real America Voice believes in. So I think the time is perfect right now.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned President Trump. There's right out of the gate in this second term, he signed an executive order reaffirming the government's protection of Second Amendment rights, something that took a lot of hits in the 4 years that Joe Biden was in office. It seems as though we're not only protecting Second Amendment rights, but a new generation of young people are beginning to enjoy the shooting sports and realizing that guns and the shooting sports are an extraordinary part of Americana. Your thoughts on the path of the Second Amendment over the last few months?
Well, Ira Dean is a shooter. Charlie Daniels is a shooter. Everybody I know is a shooter, because we believe that this precious gift of life from God is not only worth protecting, but we have a moral, intellectual, and spiritual obligation to defend our precious gift of life. Let me just summarize it thusly. What Joe Biden did, he infringed. What Jim Comey did, he infringed. What Christopher Wray did, they infringed. All gun laws are illegal. Ted Nugent declaring right here today that all gun laws based on the Second Amendment are infringements. I have the right to keep and bear arms wherever I may roam while I'm alive. Period. And on my Real America Voice Spirit Campfire, I dare anybody, and no one's taking me up on the dare, to debate that. I got my gifts and my rights from God. The founding fathers just happened to write it down. And it's being increasingly celebrated under this horror of engineered recidivism and coddling terrorists that shoot the heroes of ICE and law enforcement around this country. So these are Second Amendment celebration times. I don't defend it. I promote it and celebrate it. And I know I just spoke for Ira Dean when I said that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I do believe it was one of your
Amen, brother.
favorite founding father, John Adams, who said any law repugnant to the Constitution is null and void, and that includes gun laws as well.
That's right.
Ira, before we let you guys go, I know you're seeing a new generation of Americans rise up. We saw 34% of young Americans vote for President Trump. Do you feel things shifting?
Go ahead, Ted. You speak.
Well, yeah, again, I'm an old man. And Ira, I love you, because Ira knows he's almost like Ira's
Man, I tell you,
logic and common sense. So I feel Ira with his hand motivating my words of wisdom. And my words are wisdom because I'm 77 years old, clean and sober, and I've sponged the evidence, irrefutable, unlimited evidence to support the self-evident truth, logic, and common sense that I celebrate every day. And I got to tell you, we did a bunch of Ted Nugent Hellraiser rock and roll speakeasies in Texas. You should have seen the young boys and girls holding up signs that say Fred Bear, one of my most famous love songs for a great man. So there's people from 6 and 7 years old all the way up to people older than me, which is really old. Plus our 36th year of the Ted Nugent Camp for Kids charity. We're sold out in 4 states again. And we're talking little boys and girls 7 to 17. And they all know my music. They all know what I stand for. And their parents bring them to our charity because their parents believe in God, family, country, law and order, work ethic, being the best that you can be. So I really believe that self-evident truth is universal across this great nation of ours. Now, there are lunatic fringe that actually have a party called the Democrats, and that they think that piercings and tattoos and purple hair, not a definitive condemnation, but they think those are priorities instead of work ethic, being kind and courteous, being positive and working hard. So I got to tell you, it's not weird. The people against us are the weird ones.
That's exactly right. Listen, if you don't have this song in your playlist by tonight, you are a weird person. You're missing a great song. It's one of the best songs I've heard in a long time. Gentlemen, you sound so good together. Is there another collaboration ahead?
Take it away, Ira.
Oh,
I
God,
threatened him.
I know there is. We already planned on it. I'm going to go down to Waco or up to Michigan. But I do want to stress this. You know, Charlie backed his troops, and he had a great foundation called Journey Home Project,
right.
And it helped military transition back into civilian life. And so part of the proceeds of this song go to that.
That's
and so,
awesome.
so everybody out there, download this song and let's put the money to a good cause.
Listen to a great song and do good doing it, man. That is awesome. You guys are just amazing patriots, and what a great honor. Congratulations on the song. Everybody, go download it. Get it on your playlist tonight. You'd be silly not to. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, our weekly Just the News Health Update. We're going to talk a little bit more about all that processed food and what we're learning about it next, right after these messages.
With some dude in a Prius wouldn't flip me off. Guess my redneck hit him wrong. Seems like everyone these days is a...
Welcome back, America. Time for our weekly Just the News Health Update, brought to us by our great friends at Native Path. Joining us now, the co-founder and chief culture officer, I love that title, at Native Path, Dr. Chad Walding. Doctor, good to have you back on.
Hey, John, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. This month, we're going to take a deep dive into what are processed foods, why are they become so a matter of big topic, what are the health concerns. Let's just start with what has gone on in the last couple of months since the MAHA movement started, the Make America Healthy Again movement. Robert F. Kennedy really clearly focusing on getting processed foods out of our diet and more natural foods in. That sounds just like getting on the path, but tell us a little bit about what RFK has been working on.
Well, one of the things that really caught my attention is a comment he said about how people don't understand that processed foods are poison. And I think that's really tapping into something about our awareness and our connection between the food that we eat and our health, right? And this is something I've spoken before about how we have a food industry, knows nothing about health, a health industry that knows nothing about food. But to me, what he's speaking about there is talking about our awareness and how we become desensitized to the environments that we're in. And a good example of that, I've always used this example. Like, imagine you walk into a room with really strong perfume. And when you walk in that room, you can smell it. It's so strong. Like, wow. Like, does anybody else smell this really strong toxic perfume that I'm inhaling right now? And you start sneezing, you get red in your face and all these reactions that are happening. And you notice the people that are in the room that have been there a while, they're like, what are you talking about? We don't even know what kind of smell you're talking about. Because if we're in an environment for a long time, we become desensitized to it and we stop noticing it, right? And I bring that up because we have been living in a world where we were born into the proverbial toxic perfume room with processed and refined foods, with sugars, with artificial dyes, with toxic seed oils, and it's been impacting our health And we almost, since we're in that room, we become desensitized to it. We have no idea how bad it's impacting us, right? And we continue to get messages to, eat this processed food and take this pill to treat your symptom. But what we want to do, and what RFK is doing, the MAHA movement, is kind of getting people out of that world of processed and refined food so we can really feel what fresh air, what whole food feels like, right? And he's made some huge, huge moves with this, and we're already seeing changes within food industry companies. Some of these companies are already changing the oils they cook with. They're taking out dyes. They're taking out added sugars. We're seeing changes in grocery markets with apps and people becoming more aware. So I'm really appreciating the positive changes that are happening. And I think the more of this, because it's a process, the more it happens, the more people will become self-aware and more empowered to take control of their health.
Yeah, it's so important. In advance of this segment, I reached out to some folks at HHS just to kind of get a sense of how things are going, and they're excited about the changes in the marketplace that are voluntarily happening already. But one of the persons said to me, and I think it's very similar to what you just said, we need to educate the American people that we traded convenience in our eating for our health, and we got to get people to go back and say, hey, that's not a good trade long-term for us. Starting off, what do you, as a medical expert, what is processed food? If people don't know that, I think we generally know what it is, but how is it scientifically defined?
I define it as food that's been refined, it's been processed, it's lost its nutritional value. It tends to have a high amount of toxicity in the body. And in the food, it actually usually comes with sugar, toxic fats, artificial dyes, and it's so far removed from the food that is similar to our great-great-grandparents, right? So I would say it's the opposite of whole, real food. It's far removed from that. And it's, in my opinion, very responsible for many of our health challenges.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. What are some of the symptoms of people who just rely too much on processed food? I know weight gain is clearly one of them, but there are other things that are happening to our body. Give us some of the things that you see that are red flags that maybe you're eating a little bit too much processed food.
Yeah, weight gain is a big one. High blood pressure, blood sugar issues, inflammation, pain in the joints. It can very much be a chemical reaction. The way I look at it is processed and refined foods consumed chronically over and over. It's going to lead to what I call the triage of bad health, right? That's hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance. That's a blood sugar issue. It's poor gut symptoms. So damaging the gut, which can lead to all kinds of inflammation in the body and arthritis. And in general, it's inflammation, right? It's consuming these foods that have sugar, have seed oils that are going to inflame the body, and all kinds of symptoms from metabolic issues can be felt with that. Whether it's weight gain, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, all of that is a symptom of a metabolic issue coming from refined and processed food. So it's really important that we know that and we get to the cause of what's happening with these issues with our food, rather than fall into the trap to just think that it's your genetics and there's nothing you can do about it, right? It has everything to do with what we put in our body.
Yeah, no, it really does. The Yuka app is becoming more and more popular, particularly since the Make America Healthy movement really got launched. This is pretty cool. You're in a grocery store. It kind of gives you a guide to what is processed, what isn't processed, right?
Yeah, it's going to show you more information about the food. It's going to show you the nutrient breakdown of the food. It's going to tell you the ingredients, the nutritional value. It rates the food's overall health quality. It highlights things like the amount of sugar and fat and potential harmful additives that can be in there. And in some cases, it could suggest healthier food. But I love this because, it empowers the customer, it empowers the people. But the other great thing it does is it's going to start incentivizing food companies to produce healthier food over time when more people start to see what's going on in there and start making choices. It's, in my opinion, one of the benefits of a capitalistic society and the markets that we have is what we're offered. It's based on demand. So if we demand healthy food, they're going to start producing healthier food for us.
Yeah, really remarkable. You have a lot of amazing products at Native Path. For the ones that you work with every day with your patients, what are some of the ones that if someone's had a long addiction, a long damage to their body from processed foods, what are some of the things at Native Path that are temporary panaceas to get you on a better path?
Yeah, where to start, I say, is start with protein, right? And starting with protein is very effective because it's satiating. We actually burn calories when we consume protein, and it makes it less likely that we're going to crave carbohydrates, right? And we have to keep in mind, we live in a world that has been bombarding us with refined carbohydrates that messes up our blood sugar and our guts and inflames our body. So I say start with protein, and one of the best products you can ever start with to do that is collagen. Collagen is the most abundant protein in your body. It's what makes up the structure of your body. Like when we look at each other, we're just looking at collagen. Our hair, our skin, our nails, even our bones, our gut lining, our arteries, our veins, all of that stuff is made up of collagen. But in our modern world, in our modern diets, we're extremely deficient in collagen because it's just not part of our diets. Our ancestors would get plenty of collagen because they would eat nose to tail. They would take bones and tendons and ligaments and make broths out of that. But we do not get enough in our modern culture. And we produce collagen on our own, but after the age of 20, that begins to decline. And after the age of 50, that really begins to decline. So I've seen it over and over again. Supplementing with collagen is one of the easiest things that you can do, that when you take it consistently, for 8 weeks, many of the other health issues that we've been chasing the symptoms around, they start to go away, or it becomes easier to address because you cover such a big ground with collagen.
Yeah, my whole family, even my beautiful and young mom, are using it now, and they just brag about it. They see a difference 6, 7, 8 weeks, and you're like, oh my God, I feel better. I'm less sore. I don't crave carbs. It's an amazing thing. Dr. Chad, you put us all on a much better path for health. It's great to have you on today. Folks, here's this very special offer you get. You can get a special bundle deal at a fraction of the retail price plus free shipping right now if you go to getnativepath.com/justnews. With over 4 million jars of that collagen sold, thousands of 5-star reviews, and 365-day money-back guarantee. This is your moment to take control of your aging before symptoms get worse and get them out of control. Don't let that happen. Go to getnativepath.com/justnews. Join me in getting one of these great products. We'll be right back right after these breaks.
Welcome back, everybody. Just a few items to close out the show with, one of which is what happened on Capitol Hill earlier today. Former President Biden's White House doctor, Kevin O'Connor, appearing up there, and you're not going to be unsurprised at what he said.
Dr. O'Connor, did you ever believe the president was unfit to execute his duties as president?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and in reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I'm not a lawyer, and I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter.
Nothing says all
James
is
Comey and
good,
John
no
Brennan,
cover up here.
now under criminal investigation.
Nothing says no cover up, nothing to see here, like pleading the Fifth.
Yeah, and I don't understand how the Fifth Amendment and patient privilege is the same. And in this case, while he was a doctor for the president, he was a taxpayer's doctor for the president.
Exactly.
And he made representations to the American people. He was ensuring the health of the American electorate, that they had a fit president. And I think that at some point there's going to be pierced. I think the news that Andy Biggs made early in the show, give him immunity, make him talk.
Absolutely.
Take it away. It's going to be really interesting.
No reason to not talk at that point.
Little breaking news that happened just while we're in the commercial break. Hamas is going to release 10 Israeli hostages.
Fantastic.
So that's a good piece of news.
Absolutely.
And a sign that maybe there is going to be a peace deal. That's what President Trump's been working on very intensely. So we'll keep a close eye on that at justthenews.com over the next hour.
Also breaking right now, a hellacious storm outside of our
Yeah, it's
studio.
rocking Washington.
We've got tornado warning, 60-mile-per-hour winds, sheets.
Yeah,
I mean,
look at
just
that.
sheets of rain. It is.
You can barely see the Capitol through that
disgusting.
camera lens. But that would be clear as a whistle.
Listen, coming from LA, this wet stuff falling from the sky is very, very strange.
Not to mention the humidity. I'm sure you haven't got used to that, right? Oh my
Listen,
gosh.
I decided to phrase it and characterize it as having dewy skin instead of sweating. And my Southern mother said, what does she say? Horses sweat, men perspire, and ladies glisten. I am glistening a lot around here.
I have to remember that. That's a good one. We got to keep our hearts and minds with the people in Texas, in Kerrville and Kerr County. We learned today from Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin that his wife and family were down there and fortunately were rescued. But we're learning more and more people affected by the storm. 160 still missing. Every moment we have free, we should say a prayer for those and those families that are going through what I can't even imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I know that the rescue efforts over there are unparalleled. President Trump deploying every effort and every resource possibly needed. Same with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. But this is going to be a very, very long road to recovery for these people.
It's going to be a bad, tough number we're not going to be comfortable hearing ever again. Today, Gavin Newsom was in South Carolina, as we talked to with the Attorney General. He said he thought America was in reverse. I've talked to a lot of Californians who want California to go in reverse. Like, let's just reverse this whole Newsom experience. Man, what a weird
People
state
are
to be in.
reversing right out of California in their U-Haul trucks. So I would be very careful, Gavin Newsom, characterizing South Carolina as America in reverse.
Crazy.
Absolutely ridiculous. But Gavin Newsom, look, I think he's trying to make a play for some portion of the country, but with comments like that, he is certainly not going to
Keep in
snag
mind, it was
anyone.
South Carolina Democrats that gave us Joe Biden. That's where he
Indeed,
got his
indeed.
screenshot.
Yeah, snatched it right there from Iowa. Sounds like they're going to try to do it
offense
again.
South Carolina Democrats, but anyways.
Yeah. All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for this evening. We'll be back here tomorrow.